Okay guys, we are halfway through Figuary. Well done for getting this far. I've had so much fun reading all your comments and messages and seeing your drawings. There's more than 5,000 posts on the Figuary hashtag on Instagram, which is crazy. And I've picked out a few examples to look at in this roundup video. So we're going to talk about what's working really well and where things could be improved. The first is Sha Sha. She's been doing great stuff with her tonal shapes. She's tried a few different materials and her shadows are nice and simple and they give a good sense of volume. They don't distract or take attention away from the figure because they're pretty clean. And the only thing that I want to recommend to her is that in some of the drawings there could be more consistency so that the light makes more sense. If there's shadow here, then there should also be shadow on this side of the arm. And when you look at the photo, there is. And on this one, there is shade here, but none on the butt. The shadow shape on the butt would help to explain its volume. But great work overall from her. Deniz has done great work with the tonal shapes. These sketches from day 11, they're so good. There's lots of story in the poses and lots of simplified curves. On days 8, 9 and 12, she also did a good job with some tough poses, but the tones were a bit less defined. I'd love to see less going on in the shade here. Okay, so I just wanted to say that some of the feedback that I just gave is at least partly based on my own taste, my own preference, because I like quite clear, clean tones and values, sometimes flat colors and things like that. I like the graphic feel that it gives. So I try not to let my own taste, my own preferences and bias influence the feedback that I'm giving too much. But it's almost impossible to completely remove that. So teachers can explain techniques and they can explain the effects that those techniques have, but then it's up to you whether you want that effect in the drawings, and also if the technique is going to work for you. The reason I often say the phrase tonal shapes instead of shadow shapes is because it's not just about drawing the shadows, it's just about the different levels of tones. So you could draw the areas of light too. And John's used coloured paper and drawn the shapes of the light that he sees, and it's worked really nicely. Sometimes the whole figure is lit, like in this pose. This was a tricky pose partly because of that. But still there's different amounts of light falling on different parts of the figure, so there are still variations in the light and dark, even if there aren't clear-cut shadows. Now some of you guys have started a Figuary side project, which I'm really loving, Larryuary. One contributor to Larryuary so far is Rev. So I had a look at his drawings. Now Rev seems quite experienced, so the drawings are really good. The only things I would say are that the angles are sometimes getting a little reduced in some places. There's a point going back to the ideas from week 1. And the other is that the jagged hatching attracts attention to places I don't think always deserve that attention. Zigzag style hatching like this attracts more attention to itself and away from the figure, I think, than other types like parallel hatching or contour hatching. So we've got 2 more artists to look at, but first I just wanted to address moving model gate. On day 10, our tutorial was about simplifying the light and dark, and Croquis Cafe's practice session had a model that was moving during the pose, which presents its own challenges. So our tutorial didn't really match up properly with the practice session. And so just to let you know that next year, if we do this again, which I hope we will, we'll do a better job of coordinating the tutorial and the practice sessions. Richard did great work in the tones on day 9. It adds volume and brings a kind of drama too. On day 11, he did a good job seeing the shadows outlines, but it may have worked better to use a different line for the tonal shape edges, maybe something softer or thinner. These little bumps and details in the shapes indicate something about the details of the knee, but before that, we need to know more about the big volume, not the details. But otherwise, it was great work from Richard. Now, Hannah's been doing great stuff all month. It looked like Hannah was previously focused on outline, but has been really making an effort to implement what we're saying in the tutorials, and I really appreciate that. Early in the week, she mentioned struggling with the ideas around values that we've been looking at this week, and she soldiered on, and I think it really started to pay off, and I was so impressed with her day 12 drawings. These simple, clean, hatched shapes add a lot of volume, and she's done a great job simplifying them down. What an interesting style and approach Nana has. I love how clean and simple it is. On day 9, I really enjoyed how she merged the big shadow shape. She's obviously able to see the shapes of the values clearly. On day 11, in the 5-minute pose, maybe because she had a little bit more time, she went a little too far with detail. She started to add some jagged shapes where they're not needed, where they attract a bit too much attention, and where they don't really explain the volume very well. So it was impressive to see that by days 12 and 13, she was simplifying really well. In some places, I thought a tiny bit more consistency or logic in the lighting would have helped. So for example, the underside of her foot or this shin would be in shadow if these other areas are in shadow. So that's it for the week 2 roundup video. Well done for getting halfway through Figuary. Keep going, there's 2 more weeks, and if you can make it through that, I think you'll have built up some strong drawing habits, and that's going to take you really far into the future. So 2 more weeks of practice. Enjoy your practice session.